Okay. Took me a while to get this working today. I was trying to get a green screen going. It was not cooperating, but there will be a very fun green screen going on probably next time. Anyways, hello, Evid. Hello, 1Z State. You need it. So do mine. Teo Nu. Looking forward to class. Welcome. Good to see you, Magnus. Anybody watching, feel free to say hi in the chat. Okay, so today we're doing some knee stuff, and ideally you have one of these, any sort of band. This is the ideal band, but if you just got any other kind of physical therapy bands or workout or resistance bands, basically we're going to be using it around our knees. So it's going to have to be pretty tight. So you would just take one of these and sort of tie it up or something, right? But ideally, you have the ones that are just made for it, but really anything will work for that. Any kind of resistance band that you can just tie around your knees is totally fine. You want to have bare feet for this one, and ideally a more solid floor. So the idea today is, first off, this is just going to be good for your knees and feet and hips in general. But there is a issue often in Qigong and Tai Chi. We call it Tai Chi Knee. That's kind of supposed to be good for you, but just like anything, you can screw yourself up as well. So just like in tennis, there's a tennis elbow. In Tai Chi, there's Tai Chi Knee, right? Because we're doing all these things that can sort of stress the knee as we do it. So the biggest mistake that I often see in Qigong, and that I think the human body just like naturally wants to make when we're doing some of these movements, is people twisting their knees. So we tend to do a lot of this in Qigong. There's a lot of times where we're twisting in Qigong, right? Turning side to side, shifting side to side. And as we do it, we want that twist and turn to come from the hips and not the knee. So here's something we can all do without a band if you don't have anything. Again, those just tuning in, if you have one of these little bands, we're going to be using those. But if you have any other band, any other kind of stretchy, physical therapy bands or resistance bands of any kind, we're just going to use it sort of tied around the knees. But first, we'll just do a few warm-ups and get in touch with what our knees want to actually do. And a few foot exercises that don't require the bands too. So actually, we'll do all the exercises that don't require bands first. So if you don't have a band, you can stick around for the beginning. And then those of you who do have some kind of band that they can use, stick around for the end, and we'll do those band exercises. So, okay, don't worry if you don't got the equipment. So let's just start with warming up. We're going to use the pump. Just a nice basic warm up we do from Qigong. Here the hands drop back and swing up. Drop back, swing up. Back up. And you can see I'm already using my knees and hips here. There's two bounces. I bounce once, bounce twice. So I bend straight with the knees. It's a nice one to loosen up the low back, shoulders, hips. Start to warm up the legs. What we're going to do today is strengthen the outer hips and strengthen the feet. And these two things together, the feet and the hips, are going to work together to help us keep our knees safe. This will be good. Even if you're not feeling like Qigong or Tai Chi is something irritating your knees, but just in general, any sports or activities you do, these things are going to help create that stability. Not really this one. This is just a warm-up. Good. Relax. Okay. Find your feet shoulder width or even just a little bit wider. Toes pointing straight forward. So a movement we often do in Qigong is this kind of shift and turn. A lot of exercises use this. And it's a good one to kind of figure out how these joints really want to work. You're just going to take your hands on your hips. Now we have two joints here that we're going to move, the hip joint and the knee. The knee is a lot like your elbow. It's a hinge. It only goes in one direction, right? So the knee really only does this. When you turn, if you think about twisting your knee, it's really the hip joint that's turning. Right? If I want to turn my foot, I just try this with me. I just feel how it's not your knee twisting here, and not even really the ankle. It's the hip turning, right? Try that on the other side. Turning the foot, turning the knee, but really you feel it's at the hip. Hip's a ball and socket. You can move in a lot of different directions. It's like the difference between your shoulder and your elbow, right? So let's do it with weight bearing. What we're going to do is shift the weight to the right foot. Feel your hip here and try to just turn from the hip without the knee turning or moving at all. And then shift to the other side. See how my knee's kind of pointed forward? It's not going to turn with the hip, just the hips turning. See, if I let my leg turn, the leg would kind of turn out, and that strains the knee, so we're not going to do that. We're going to shift, turn around the hip, but keep the knee strong. Shift, turn around the hip, keep the knee strong. Shift, turn, shift, turn, shift, turn. Okay, so as the hip rotates out, in order to prevent the knee from coming out too, think of twisting in with the leg. As though the leg is trying to twist in while the torso is turning out. You can actually think of that going all the way down to the foot. So think about grabbing the floor with your foot and as though you're trying to turn the floor in as the hip turns out. And that's going to keep that knee strong, pointing forward as the hip goes outwards. So you grip the floor, think of the floor turning in as the hip goes out. And as you do that with the floor, you might notice you don't even have to do anything with the hip. You just relax the hip, the foot will sort of turn the hip for you. So you push off, grab, turn the floor, turn the hip. Push, grab, turn. Pushing off, grabbing, turning. Pushing off, grabbing, turning. Pushing off, grab, turn. Okay, a few more times. Very nice. Good, shake it out. All right, another thing we can find is our glutes doing more of the work and catching our weight. So again, with a slightly wider than shoulder width stance, take your hands on the hips, shift your weight to one side, let's say the right, and what we're going to do is called coiling. You're going to feel your quad here, the hip crease, and it's like we're folding the crease here. Fold the crease as we sink down. And what you want to feel is the glute catch the muscle here, and it should feel like there's an iron bar going down from the glute down to the heel. So we kind of fall into the heel with the glute. Push off. We fold this quad, this hip crease. It's like if you put your fingers there, your sort of hip and groin will pinch your fingers. Come to the other side. Pinch your fingers on the quad. The hips are sort of going down and back a little. We call this coiling sometimes. Feel the glute muscle activate here. As though there's an iron rod going down from your sit bone here, right down to the heel. That iron rod is really your glute turning on, but it's such a powerful muscle. It feels like you're sitting on an iron rod. It's just no one could push you down here if they tried. This iron rod is just going right into the earth. Folding the quad, sitting into the heel with the glute. The knee not rotating out. It's not coming with us. Knee staying straight forward. Just the quad turns. The hips turn and the quad folds. Most of your weight in the heel here. Okay, so this is a technique they use in internal martial arts. So somebody directs power into you and you sort of send it down through that iron rod into the earth and then push it back out into them. So it's basically training you to use the strongest muscles in your body, your glutes, rather than relying on other muscles. Okay, next one, we're going to start to strengthen the feet. This one, we're just going to basically, which one should we start with? Let's start with the star feet. So this isn't Qigong, this just comes from like physical therapy. So you're basically going to stand on, let's say, your left foot. You're trying to grip the floor with your toes, so you really spread them out, grab the floor nice and wide. The other foot, the right foot, is going to make sort of a star-like pattern. So you're going to go forward, diagonal forward, sidewards, diagonal backwards, straight back. And repeat. Forward, diagonal, side, diagonal, back. And the foot you're standing on, as you keep doing this, the foot you're standing on, you're trying to keep it as stable as possible so it's not kind of wobbling in and out. You're really gripping the floor, keeping a strong lifted arch. Feel your big toe activated on the floor. Help maintain that arch. Just try not to wobble in and out. Try not to collapse your arch. Even as our leg here, it's basically just trying to throw us off balance, give us something to work against. One more round. The feet are strong. They support the knees. When the feet are collapsing, right, what does that do to our knees? Kind of sends a lot of pressure in towards the inside of the knee. If your feet like fall out, it's going to send pressure to the outside of the knee. So you want to be able to maintain that nice even grip with the feet. Other side, standing on the right foot. Left foot goes forward, diagonal, side, diagonal back, straight back. Just like a star pattern. That standing leg, trying to keep a strong arch. Try to wobble as little as possible. If you need to hold on to something lightly in the beginning, that's totally fine. And one more round. Try to keep that strong arch. Relax. Okay, next one for the feet. We're going to just work with the toes. It'd be really nice if you could zoom on this thing, but I'm not sure that's happening. Try to describe it as best I can. Basically, again, feet, this time hip width apart. Pick up your toes, spread them out, grab the floor. We're going to try to just lift the big toe while keeping the other 4 toes on the floor. Lifting up the big toe, set it down, and then try to lift the 4 smaller toes while keeping the big toe on the floor. Set it down. Now we're going to try to do that again, this time thinking about the 3 pads of the feet, the heel, the ball of the foot, and the pinky pad. All 3 of these points like a tripod, having the weight even between them. So let's say as we pick up the big toe, we don't pick up the ball of the foot. We just pick up the big toe. As we pick up the small toes, we try not to lift the pinky pad of the foot off the floor, and we just lift the toes. Okay. So it can be kind of tricky for the brain. We'll just go like 3 seconds each. Lift the big toe, try to keep everything else on the floor. Lift the small toes, try to keep everything else on the floor. Lift the big toe. Lift the small toes. Big toe. Small toes. And as you lift the toes, the toe that stays on toes that stay on the ground, try to actually push into the floor with them. Push into the floor with the toes that aren't lifting. So it'll be kind of trippy. We're not usually used to doing anything dynamic with our toes. We kind of just think them as the useless things at the end of our feet. Remember, these toes used to be hands, right? Feet used to be hands. Okay, shake that out. Very nice. A little bit of silk reeling for the knees, and then we'll bring out our bands. Here we're just going to bring our feet together, knees together, hands over the knees. Knees stay a little bent as we circle them together. A little more on the traditional Qigong side of taking care of the knees. If you feel any sharp pain in your knees, you might want to back off a bit, make smaller circles, or even just circle with the hands. You don't want to do anything to aggravate any problems that are already there. Okay, go the other way with this one. Good. Straighten the legs, point the toes forward. We'll just find a stretch. And slide down. A few deep breaths. Roll it up. Shake it out. Very nice. All right, our next exercise is use a band. So if you don't have any sort of resistance band material, you're kind of out of luck here. I'm not sure how to do this without them. You can try to follow along, and it might be helpful anyways. But ideally, you have one of these smaller ones. Widely popular on Instagram these days as the booty bands, you know. I think a lot of people are trying to use these for aesthetic reasons. I think they're better off doing deadlifts, in my opinion, but I think these are better more for a therapeutic thing. But whatever band you have, if it's a small one like this, goes great just above your knees. If you have a larger band, you can try to wrap it around a few times and tie it off. You want a good amount of resistance so that just separating your legs into a shoulder width stance feels resistance. And that's basically, that's basically what this is training us to do, is to push our knees out. Because like I said, in Qigong, what we're often doing, actually this is another thing I meant to show you guys. Actually, let's take the band off and let's go over why we're doing this. So another thing we often do in Qigong is, we do a lot of twisting things, right? And as we twist, one thing that I see everybody do, unless they're told not to, is there's this kind of collapsing as we do things. And what you really want is, the reason we call this horse stance is we imagine there's a horse between your knees, right? And so even in our normal stance, if you had something between your knees like a horse or like a ball or something, and you turned your upper body, your knees couldn't collapse in. They'd squish on that thing. So usually in Qigong, we're just imagining like there's something between our knees, and that's helping us to think about pushing our knees out. But, great thing about living in modern times, so you can use more than imagination. We have a few more tools. So we can actually work against something so that it becomes easier as we do it. Okay, so we have a shoulder width stance. Notice I'm not letting the band push my knees in. I'm actively pushing out against the band. If you don't have a band, you can just sort of imagine that you're pushing your knees out against something. You still want to participate. But basically, we're just going to drop into a few squats like this. So you're going to send your hips back, arms up. then come up. And the whole time you're squatting, you're pushing out against the band. So you're not letting the knees fall in as you squat. You're staying pushed out. So your knees are about somewhere between hip and shoulder width. So hopefully you guys know how to squat. The hips go back. Right, so our knees aren't coming over our toes. I'm not squatting like this, right? Pushing the knees forward. I'm squatting by sending the hips back. Another way to keep your knees safe. Keep your knees pushing out against the band. The band is just above the knees. Get nice and strong. Strengthen these outer hip muscles that are gonna help keep those legs pulled and rotated outwards. Okay, take a little break by bringing your feet together. Whew. Very nice. The next one is like a little walk. So you can come over to one side of the room. You may have seen this kind of crap on Instagram, girls trying to grow their booties. Again, if you're really trying to grow your booty, just go to the gym and do squats and deadlifts. Don't mess around with this band nonsense. Feet under the shoulders again. Step a little wider than shoulders. We're a little bit sunk in the hips. We're not a full squat, just a little bit sunk. And we step in about hip width, a little wider than shoulders. About hips, outside the shoulders. I just kind of try to go really controlled here. We don't just kind of let it, right? Nice and controlled. Keep the knees pressing out against it. We're not going like this, right? We're staying like this. And just go back and forth. You can add your crab claws if you want. A little crab Qigong. Should feel that heat building up there on the outer hip. Let's try one more time. And again, bring the feet together to rest. Phew. Very nice. Okay, next one's on the floor. It's gonna be so awkward to run around in, huh? Okay, so we're gonna get on our back. It's basically gonna be a bridge pose. Bridge. So you're on your back. Your feet are on the ground. You got about shoulder width, and at about the distance that you could tickle your heels with the fingers. Your hands are gonna come out about 45 degrees, flat on the floor. You're gonna separate your knees again to be about shoulder width. You're going to lift your hips up towards the sky, keeping the knees pressing out against the band. So the knees aren't falling in again. They're being pushed out about shoulder width. We're just going to slowly go up and down a few times, holding at the top for a couple seconds each time. The knees pressing out. Little hold at the top each time. You should feel that turn on the glutes. A few more. You can really just go until you can't anymore. Okay, let your knees come together. You can take off the band. Oh, very nice. Let's find our way back up. Give it a little shake. Very nice. So that's basically a workout you could do for your knees. I think the most important part of that workout is the foot strength stuff and the band stuff. Those Qigong things are just kind of really good more as like a nervous system training to feel exactly how the hips and knees and feet function together. Those are really nice to train too. If you're short on time and your knees are bothering you, I'd really just try to focus on the band stuff and the foot strength stuff to really tune those things up so that you have the strength around the knees, not really just in the knees, but all the things that connect to the knees to help them line up properly and not create like undue pressure in weird ways. Okay, let's just end with a couple stretches. So we can open the quad just by holding the top of the foot. If you need to, you can hold on to something. If you're already getting a stretch, just hang out. If you need more, send the knee down and the hip forward, chest up. So we're kind of creating like a bow and arrow along the front of the body, going down towards the hip and knee. I'm just going to hold here. You can use 2 hands if you need. Get more stretch. Breathe down to the front of the hip. Good. Switch sides. Hold on to an object, chair, wall, holding the top of the foot. If you already feel a stretch, just hang out. If you need more, knee down, hip forward, chest up. This will create this bowing across here. Should open your hip and quad. Nice deep breaths. Another good way to strengthen the feet is just stand on one foot while we stretch. All right, we'll end with just one Qigong flow, or technically Tai Chi. We'll do cloudy hands. This will just help us learn to move with this structure in a way that feels more natural and fluid. So feet are under the shoulders, knees are a little soft. Again, we think of them as just slightly pushed out, like the thighs are slightly rotating outwards. And you should feel that also translates to the feet. So the feet, instead of collapsing in, as the thighs rotate out, those feet sort of activate the arch. Bring your arms around for embrace the tree. Your elbows are just a little lower than the shoulders and hands. Hands are about chest height. Fingers spread. The arms form basically a hoop. So cloudy hands from here. Bring your left hand down. We're going to shift the weight to the right foot. And again, it's around the hip that we turn, not the leg or knee turning, just the hip. We switch the hands, left hand up, shift the weight to the left foot, and we turn around the right hip, switch the hands, shift to the right, turn around the hip, switch the hands, shift, turn, switch, shift, turn, switch. Oh, we're feeling that strength in the feet. Knees staying pointed forward, the hips turning. Feel that little fold in the quad here. Folding in the quad. When we think about Qigong, we often think we're supposed to be kind of noodly, right? Like the more fluid you get, like the more chi is going to happen somehow. So I see a lot of people, especially here in Santa Cruz, California. This is like the kind of Burning Man Qigong people like to do often. But it's really the balance between the structure and the flow. So you can't just have flow, you need structure. Like my teacher likes to say, like the banks of the river. You need the water plus the riverbanks to generate the power for the river. Otherwise, the water is just kind of oozing everywhere. You want that structure of the banks to produce more chi, more power and current in the body. We generally hypothesize that this is something to do with the fascial system, the matrix of fascia or connective tissue through the body. that actually produces electricity when it's put under mechanical stress. The idea is sort of that you're putting this general expansion and pressure on the fascia as we move. This is actually making electricity and literally generating energy in the body. You take a few relaxing breaths with this, just a few more. You can inhale to one side, exhale to the other. Come to the center, pull down the sky 3 times, inhale, exhale. Scan your body head to toe like a net through water, clearing any stagnant shape. Bring it over the belly. And circle. And sometimes what I like to do is have this little weight shift. Wherever the side the hands go to, the weight shifts to that side. Continue to feel that strength in the feet, power in the legs. Good. Center over the dantian, just below your navel. Nice deep breath in. Release. Very good. Shake it out a bit. Very nice. So if you're finding you're having trouble with your knees, you might try that routine maybe 2 or 3 times a week for a couple weeks or maybe a month. Would probably work out better. 2 or 3 times a week for a month and see how that affects your knees. I do take these off YouTube, so check out my Patreon if you want to use this video more. And hopefully next time I'll have this working. This is my green screen, so I could turn this into a window. So we can be like doing Qigong at Yosemite or the beach. Or I think it's kind of fun, but it wasn't really working out today. Okay, so link to my Patreon is down in the description. It's pretty cheap. It's like $5 a month, and you get access to all my past and future YouTube lives replays. You can watch them as many times as you want. So the link is down there in the description. And also, don't forget, running a teacher training, and you have till January 31st, so about 1 more week to sign up with a 20% discount. It's already a pretty affordable teacher training. You can actually watch. I did an AMA yesterday, Ask Me Anything about it. So if you have like extra questions, you can look back into that AMA live that I did. But generally, if you just click the link below, there's a sales page. It's all the info on the course. It'll be live every Saturday from noon to 3 Pacific time, California time. Actually, and we're actually thinking about dropping that back a couple hours too, because people in Europe seem to prefer it a little earlier because that's like super late in the evening for them. So we might actually drop that time back too. But I gotta make sure everybody who's already signed up is good with that. Okay, so discount code's in the bottom. If you want that 20% off, it's just the code TT20, letter T, like teacher training, number 20 for 20% off. And just click that link below and you can learn more. Other than that, got lots more great YouTube content coming out soon. Got more from the desert, from Joshua Tree. I did one in the evening. That was really cool. It was like a desert sunset. So made that like a nice like Qigong for sleep routine. So lots of cool stuff coming out. Thank you guys for all your support. Thanks for tuning in. Giving me your likes and comments. Those things really help the channel. name is Trevor. Thanks, Trevor. Thanks, Christy. Thanks, Magnus. Yeah, I hope that helps your left knee. All right. See you, everybody. Have a good day.